Hey guys, tonight we're going to time travel right into the worn wool socks of someone waking up in the year 1850. It's early morning near Humboldt Bay, California. You're curled up under a quilt that smells faintly like wood smoke and damp wool, and the chill in the air hits different because, well, insulation is still an experimental concept. The house creaks like it's telling ghost stories to itself, and outside, fog drapes over the redwoods like a sleepy giant's blanket. You blink awake to the distant sounds of clucking hens and the metallic screech of a pump handle. Someone's drawing water. Probably your father, who will later insist you've slept in, even though the sun still hasn't finished climbing over the tree line. Somewhere nearby, a mule snorts. Somewhere closer, a floorboard groans under your sister's cautious steps. She's probably trying not to wake the rest of the house. Too late. Your bed is stuffed with straw and goose feathers, which sounds quaint until you realize a feather has lodged itself firmly in your nose. You sneeze violently. The quilt, tugged tight overnight, slides off with the elegance of a kicked rug. Welcome to 1850. Your mattress smells like animal, your pillow smells like yesterday's hair oil, and your feet are cold enough to qualify for statehood. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're listening, post your location and what time it is where you are. I want to know who's dozing off across the world with me. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You roll out of bed and immediately regret the decision. The floorboards are ice. Your only socks were damp when you went to sleep, and now they've magically transformed into frozen cloth tubes. You shove your feet into stiff leather boots anyway, flinching. The morning air smells like cedar, bacon, and the lingering ghost of whale oil. That's right, whale oil, used for lighting, heating, and sometimes even furniture polish. If it shines and stinks, odds are someone rubbed a whale on it. The lantern above you flickers, gasping its last breath. You'll have to trim the wick again. The walls of the house are made from split redwood boards, cut by hand or dragged through the earliest steam-powered sawmills machines that historians still argue whether they were more dangerous to timber or to limbs. The gaps between boards are stuffed with moss, cloth scraps, or whatever else passed for insulation. On a windy night, you can hear the coyotes without opening a window. You might also hear the wind rattling the zinc siding your dad ordered all the way from San Francisco. It gleams like a prize ribbon and groans like a shipwreck. You pad into the main room where the cast iron stove is barely doing its job. Someone left a kettle over the embers and it smells like yesterday's bean water. Your mother is already up, cheeks flushed from the heat and effort of flipping Johnny cakes. She nods at you, too focused to speak. You think of offering help, but then remember the last time you spilled molasses on her apron. Best to find your seat and look useful. You plop down on the long wooden bench, its edges worn smooth by years of fidgety elbows and crumb trails. Your little brother slouches beside you, chewing on a fingernail and pretending he's not awake yet. The table creaks as your father drops a crate of eggs onto it. "Hen's been busy," he says. You try not to imagine what else the hen's been doing. Breakfast appears in pieces: salt pork, crisped to an inch of its life, cornbread, soaked in lard, boiled potatoes, and a single shiny apple from the root cellar. If you're lucky, there's blackberry jam. If you're really lucky, you won't get the piece of cornbread with the chipped tooth hazard in it. As you eat, a foghorn moans faintly from the bay. It's from the monthly steamer, most likely the mail packet that brings word from the rest of the world. You're tempted to run down and see it dock, but you remember that chores come first. Always chores. You're in California now, barely 2 years into statehood. Most of the maps don't even show your town yet, just blank space marked with hopeful names like Uniontown or North Fork. And no, there's no Google Street View to check if your address exists. It doesn't. The postmaster knows your name, your neighbor's goat, and your cousin's handwriting. That's how mail works. Outside, The fog lifts slowly over the redwood treetops. You step onto the porch, boots crunching on last night's frost. A hawk screeches somewhere overhead. A neighbor trundles by with a wheelbarrow full of burlap sacks, likely potatoes or some salted mystery meat. You wave. He grunts. That counts as neighborly affection in 1850. As you scan the street, just dirt, no pavement, you realize the whole place still smells like fresh-cut timber and distant smoke. This is a lumber town, born from the redwood groves and raised on mule muscle. Eureka, just across the bay, is starting to outgrow you, but your side of the water still feels like it belongs to the trees. And maybe the bears. Someone said bears won't bother you if you sing while walking alone. No one's confirmed that. No one's survived long enough to clarify. The morning slips forward. Somewhere a rooster is still crowing at a sun that's already risen. You roll your sleeves, take a last sip of your coffee, bitter, smoky, and laced with eggshells to settle the grounds, and step off the porch into another long, dusty day in 1850.
You've got 5 minutes to get dressed, and none of it will be comfortable. You've slept in a flannel shirt because that's also your best shirt, and now it's time to add layers. Wool trousers that itch like regret, braces that have definitely seen better decades, and your jacket made of thick canvas stained with everything from bacon grease to pine sap. But hey, it's sturdy, and that's the only metric that matters right now. Fashion hasn't been invented yet in your part of California. You pull on your socks, still a little damp, and jam your feet back into those stiff boots. By now, they've conformed perfectly to the shape of your blisters. That's the magic of 1850s footwear. Less about comfort, more about character development. There's no bathroom. The term doesn't even exist yet. You take your tin basin, step outside, and splash icy water on your face until your ancestors feel it. No soap unless you count lye bricks that smell like death and turn your hands into dry bark. You dry your face on a flour sack someone once used as a curtain. Then comes hair. Oh, the glory of it. You dab a bit of bear grease onto your fingers and work it through with an old comb. Some folks use bacon drippings. Others swear by turpentine and honey. You, for better or worse, have access to actual bear fat. It smells alive. Historians still argue whether this was more about style or lice prevention. Either way, your head now glistens like a freshly varnished banister. Next, you reach for your scent. That's right, you do cologne. It comes in a small glass bottle with a cork stopper and smells like someone crushed a pine cone inside a bottle of gin. It's called Essence of Forest Tonic and might also be rat poison. But hey, it's the 1850s. You smell like something, and that's good enough. Your mother walks by with a pair of mended socks. She wrinkles her nose but doesn't say anything. Bear fat is better than whatever your brother used last week. He's still banned from family dinners after that mustard seed incident. Outside, the wind picks up, and your jacket flaps a little as you walk toward the barn. A neighbor passes, tips his cap. He smells faintly of kerosene and boiled cabbage. Everyone does. It's kind of the town's signature scent. If you're a woman, your morning ritual is even more thrilling. You begin by cinching a corset tight enough to cut off emotional expression. It takes real strength, patience, and a complete disregard for your internal organs. One tug, and your posture shifts from "I'm fine" to "I'm barely breathing, but it's polite to smile." Over the corset, you pull on layers. Petticoats, camise, underskirt, overskirt, apron, shawl, bonnet. By the time you're done, you've aged a year. If it's laundry day, prepare to fight. You haul water in buckets, heat it in a kettle, then stir clothes in a barrel with homemade lye soap that could clean rust off a mule. You scrub until your knuckles go raw, then wring out everything by hand and hang it up in the icy morning air. It dries stiff, like moral character. You'd think in a world of this much physical effort, people would stink all the time, and you'd be right. But no one talks about it because everyone's playing the same losing game. Besides, cleanliness isn't just next to godliness, it's somewhere between expensive and impossible. You pull out a handkerchief to wipe your nose, and it's stiff with starch. You wonder when it was last washed. Best not to think about it. You tuck it back in your pocket like it's decorative. Your boots crunch over gravel as you walk toward town. There are no sidewalks, just packed dirt, sometimes laid with planks if the mud gets dramatic. You pass a woman dumping out dishwater into the street. It splashes onto your trousers. You nod politely because it's 1850 and people duel over less. A dog trots by with a chicken bone in its mouth. No one owns it, but everyone feeds it. It may be the mayor. You glance down the lane and see the telegraph office, just a shack with wires running out of it like veins from a wooden heart. The operator inside looks up from his bench, gives you a nod. He's one of 3 people in town who knows Morse code. The others are too busy selling pickaxes or whiskey to care about dots and dashes. You arrive at the general store, where the smell of tobacco, kerosene, flour, and dried apples hits you like a slow-moving wagon. The shelves hold everything: bonnets, bullets, barrels of molasses. There's a sign near the front counter that reads, "No credit after dark. Don't ask." Below it, a smaller one says, "Yes, we still sell corset stays." You grab a spool of thread and a tin of tooth powder. The tooth powder contains charcoal, chalk, and crushed eggshells. You use it once a week and still get cavities you can feel in your spine, but it's better than doing nothing, barely. As you leave, the bell above the door jingles, made from an old mule collar. You take one last look at your reflection in the window. Hair, greasy but shiny. Jacket, dusty but closed. Teeth, present. You're ready. But as you turn back toward the road, you see something ominous. Mrs. Lindstrom is walking toward you carrying her infamous herbal tonic. You've already tried to fake death once this week. Too late now. She corners you with a smile as bright as the sun and twice as blinding. "You look peaked," she says. "Just a sip. Boiled willow bark, mint, and squirrel marrow." You drink. It tastes like regret and shoe leather. You thank her and smile through the burn. She walks off pleased, and you vow to never make eye contact again. You stagger a little, but it's fine. It's just another morning. A foggy, fragrant, oddly sticky morning in the year 1850. You've survived the wardrobe. You've survived the cologne. You've survived the neighbor's squirrel potion. You're winning. Kind of.
You're finally outside and semi-human, which means it's time for breakfast the 1850s way. You walk back toward home, your stomach already making whale song noises because your body knows what's coming. Salt, fat, and more salt. There's no menu. There's no parfait. There's only what your mother or older sister managed to scrape together while swatting flies with one hand and keeping the stove from exploding with the other. As you step through the front door, your nose is hit by the smell of something halfway between comfort and combustion. Breakfast is ready. On the table sits a cast iron skillet filled with thick-cut salt pork. It hisses and pops like it's trying to escape. Next to it is a pot of coffee, black, overboiled, and strong enough to summon spirits. You don't ask what kind of beans were used. The answer is cheap. You also don't ask what's floating on top. That's how flavor is made. There's cornbread, of course, thick, crumbly, cooked in a pan that hasn't been washed since the Polk administration. A slab of butter curls on top like a slug of gold. Someone's managed to slice up some apples, browned around the edges but juicy underneath. There's molasses in a jar, so dark and sticky it could patch a canoe. Today's extra special, though. Someone found berries in the woods, which means there is pie on the table for breakfast. In 1850, fruit pie is a legitimate morning food like eggs or fear. You sit at the table and help yourself. No plates. Just grab a hunk of cornbread, scoop a bit of salt pork, and tip a ladle of gravy. If you're lucky, there is gravy over the whole thing. Forks are optional. Fingers work fine. Napkins are for Sundays. And the coffee. Sweet heaven, the coffee. You drink it hot from a tin cup with a dent in the rim. It tastes like firewood and survival.
Someone's added eggshells to the pot to settle the grounds, a common trick that works maybe half the time. The other half, you're just eating crunchy coffee. Historians still argue whether coffee in 1850 improved cognition or just masked exhaustion. Either way, you're awake now. Kinda. At the other end of the table, your little brother is quietly crunching on a piece of burnt toast, which you suspect is last week's biscuit. He's dipping it in maple syrup, possibly in defiance of local law. Across from him, your father pours thick cream into his coffee, using his pinky finger to stir. That's as fancy as it gets. A slab of smoked ham lands on your tin plate with a thunk. It's got more salt than a sailor's vocabulary. You chew it anyway. Breakfast in 1850 isn't about finesse. It's about function. Calories equals survival. Taste is a bonus. Your mother places a bowl of stewed beans in front of your sister. Your sister sighs. She had beans last night, and yesterday, and the day before. Beans are the family's unofficial mascot. They show up more reliably than your uncle did at his own wedding. There's also leftover cabbage from supper. Reheated with vinegar and sprinkled with black pepper, it's strong enough to double as a cleaning product. You take a bite. Your sinuses clear instantly. You feel reborn and slightly afraid. Outside the window, a rooster struts past like he owns the property. He probably does. You lock eyes. He blinks first. You finish your coffee, scalding your tongue because the handle of your cup is roughly the temperature of lava. You stand up, brush crumbs off your shirt, and grab a biscuit to go. The biscuit is hard enough to qualify as currency, but you're going to need it later. If you're living further inland, say in the Missouri Territory or along the wagon trails, you'd be eating different things. Corn mush, dried squirrel, salted buffalo, maybe even hardtack, which is basically a cracker forged from pure spite and dust. Some settlers bang it against the table before eating it just to scare the termites out. In California, though, you've got odd imports. Today's bread was made from Chilean flour. The molasses came from New Orleans. The salt pork was packed in Boston and may have seen more oceans than you ever will. You're eating global before global's even a word. And if you're really out on the edge, in the Sierra foothills or up near the Oregon border, you might be supplementing your diet with foraged greens and smoked eel. A few brave souls eat something called pioneer pudding, which is just lard, cornmeal, and resignation baked in a Dutch oven. But right now, you've got pie, and you're holding it in your hand like it's the crown jewels. You take a bite. The crust crumbles, sweet and gritty. The berries pop like little bombs of sugar and tartness. It's warm. It's good. It might be the best thing you'll eat all week. You chew slowly, deliberately, because you know what's coming next. Chores. Breakfast is over. It's time to get to work. Your mother begins clearing dishes, scraping scraps into a pan for the pigs. Your sister is already outside, dumping water onto the vegetable patch, watching the steam rise from the soil. You grab your hat, broad-brimmed, sweat-stained, and full of character, and head out the door. But just before you leave, your father grabs your shoulder. He says, "Take the biscuit." You nod. You already were. Because in 1850, food isn't just a necessity. It's a lifeline, a comfort, a quiet rebellion against all the things that can and will go wrong. And breakfast? It's the only time of day you're guaranteed to sit down and feel something close to full, even if it's just full of salt pork and scoured coffee.
The sun's climbing higher, but the air still smells like chimney smoke and damp pine. You're walking toward the schoolhouse now, your biscuit tucked into a pocket where lint and crumbs form some kind of crunchy alliance. Your boots crunch on gravel, then squelch as you hit a patch of mud so treacherous it should have its own caution sign. It's not even raining. It's just always like this. You see the schoolhouse from a distance. It's a squat wooden building with a lopsided roof, faded red paint, and exactly one bell currently being rung by someone who thinks ringing louder equals more education. It's a single room, one teacher, 27 students. Ages range from just figured out the alphabet to probably old enough to vote if the law looked the other way. You step inside and the warmth hits you first. Not cozy warmth, more like a lot of humans packed into a small room with a stove that might explode. The cast iron heater in the corner wheezes and pops like it's trying to be helpful but resents everyone. You find your seat, a wooden bench with no back support and the personality of a torture device. Your desk has a lid that won't close and a secret stash of ancient gum under it. You try not to think about the source. There's no chalkboard, just a battered slate propped on a crate. You write your assignments on your own smaller slate with a stub of chalk so worn it's basically calcium dust. Your textbooks? Let's see. You have McGuffey's Reader, a Bible, and a math book with multiplication tables handwritten by someone who probably hated math. Today's lesson starts with spelling. The teacher, a stern woman named Miss Clary, who might secretly be a falcon, asks you to spell perseverance. You guess wrong twice, then throw in an extra E just to be sure. She doesn't smile. She never does. Some say she once laughed in 1837 and hasn't recovered since. Next comes reading aloud. Each student takes a turn, standing awkwardly while reciting tales of patriotism, shipwrecks, or talking rabbits, depending on which page they accidentally flip to. You read from a passage about Benjamin Franklin and the kite, trying not to hiccup when it says electrical fluid. No one knows what that means. Historians still argue whether early readers really understood half the science in those books, or just smiled and nodded through the confusion. At recess, you race outside, bursting through the door like freedom itself. The games are simple and dangerous. You play tag near a rusty fence. Someone brings out a hoop and stick. Another kid dares you to walk the length of a log while pretending it's a pirate ship. You accept, of course. You slip. You earn a splinter the size of a chopstick. You are proud. Girls gather under a tree, braiding each other's hair with ribbon and discussing the scandalous idea of wearing bloomers. Boys attempt to construct a slingshot out of bark and string. It doesn't work, but the attempt ends with someone accidentally flinging a pine cone into Miss Clary's lunch pail. No one confesses. You all swear a silent oath of secrecy and terror. Back inside, it's time for arithmetic. The teacher recites problems out loud while you try not to cry. If one barrel of apples costs 75 cents, how many barrels can you buy with $3? You whisper, 4, then erase it and write 5, then erase that too. You settle on a handful and hope the teacher accepts creativity as math. You glance around the room. One girl is drawing flowers in the margin of her reader. A boy next to you has fallen asleep with his face stuck to the slate. Someone at the back is carving initials into the bench. EBL will be immortalized forever, or at least until the next fire. Because yes, schools catch fire. Often. The buildings are wooden, the lanterns are oil, and the stoves are basically controlled arson. Every student secretly dreams of school burning down, but only the quiet kid in the back corner has a plan. Lunchtime is next. You walk outside again and sit under the barest excuse for a tree. Your lunch is a chunk of cheese, 2 biscuits, and an apple that's mostly bruise. You eat fast, drink from a shared dipper at the water barrel. Germs haven't been invented yet, and try not to let the goats near your food. Because there are goats. They belong to the neighbor's kids, or maybe the school, or maybe no one. One of them stares at you like it knows your secrets. You eat faster. The afternoon is devoted to penmanship. You're handed a nib pen and a bottle of ink that's so unforgiving it stains your fingers until July. You practice loops and slants, tracing perfect lines until your hand cramps, and the ink blots make it look like the Declaration of Independence died on your page. Some students use copybooks, where inspiring lines like "hard work brings rewards" or "virtue is its own companion" are repeated in beautiful cursive until your soul leaves your body. You accidentally write "vulture is its own company." You don't correct it. You might be right. School ends when the light starts to fade. There's no electricity, no gas lamps in the classroom, just sunshine. And when that's gone, class is done. Miss Clary dismisses you with a nod. The slate boards are wiped, the stove damped, and the benches creak as you all stretch and yawn. You leave with your biscuit crumbs, your inky fingers, and exactly one new fact about Benjamin Franklin that may or may not be true. Outside, the air is cool again.
You walk home, tired and a little proud. You survived spelling. You earned a splinter. And you made it another day in a schoolhouse held together by prayers, pine sap, and at least 2 live goats.
You're halfway home from school, biscuit crumbs still in your pocket, and you're mentally calculating how many minutes of peace remain before someone hands you a shovel. Because in 1850, rest is a mythical creature like dragons or easy laundry. You pass the neighbor's property where goats glare at you from atop a crooked shed. One of them bleats in a tone that feels personal. You tip your hat. The goat doesn't tip back. When you reach home, the front door is wide open. That's the signal. Come in, roll up your sleeves, and prepare to become a walking to-do list. In this time and in this place, children are not ornamental. You are not here to discover your passion. You are here to be useful. If your family farms, you're handed a bucket before your boots even dry. Maybe it's feeding time for the pigs, or maybe the chickens have staged another egg-hiding rebellion. You tramp out back through a field that crunches with frost or mud, or both, and try to look like someone who knows where oats are stored. Today, your father decides the fence needs fixing. A section by the creek has leaned into chaos and the rails have gone rogue. You grab a hammer, a pocket of bent nails, and a coil of wire so stubborn it might have feelings. The sun's still high, but already your hands are cracking from cold and splinters. The nails refuse to go in straight. You refuse to give up. If you're not on the farm, perhaps your family runs a store. That means sweeping floors covered in molasses dust, restocking buttons, measuring out gunpowder, one trembling scoop at a time. The customers are tired men with stained beards and stories they shouldn't be telling you. One of them, for some reason, always asks you to read the label on the cough syrup. You do. Every time. He nods solemnly and buys whiskey instead. There's no register, just a battered ledger where your mother writes purchases in soft pencil. Sometimes people pay. Sometimes they trade potatoes, goat cheese, or one memorable afternoon, a chicken with half a foot. Or maybe your family keeps bees. If so, today you're smoking out a hive with your uncle, who believes bees can smell fear and will tell everyone if you scream. You pretend not to scream when one gets stuck in your bonnet. And if you're not a farmer, shopkeeper, or bee dodger, you might be on the edge of the logging world. Humboldt's redwood groves stretch for miles and the lumber trade is growing fast. Boys just your age are already stacking planks, sorting nails, or hauling water for the steam saw. You've seen one of those saws up close, thundering, snorting, exhaling steam like a monster with a job to do. The grown-ups say it's progress. You say it looks hungry. Work doesn't come with compliments. No one hands you gold stars or writes, "Great job," on a chalkboard. But when you haul in firewood and it's dry, when you collect eggs and none are broken, when your father actually says, with a nod instead of silence, well, that's basically a standing ovation. Sometimes your jobs aren't even physical. If your family's educated or pretending to be, you might be tasked with copying letters. Letters to banks, letters to far-off cousins, letters to Washington senators who definitely won't read them. You sharpen the quill, ink the nib, and begin each word with a flourish that would impress a wedding invitation. And halfway through the ink blots, every single time. Then there's laundry. Even if it's not your official duty, laundry drags everyone into its orbit. The tub sits over the fire, filled with shirts that smell like whatever Tuesday was. You help stir them with a stick longer than your arm. There's lye soap, which stings, and a washboard that could file down a fence post. The water turns gray, then brown, then vaguely worrying. You look away. Now and then your family does contract work.
Mending shoes, fixing tools, or making candles. You've dipped so many candles, your hands smell like tallow and disappointment. The wicks never hang straight, the wax drips sideways. You stare at the crooked row drying on the windowsill and feel personally judged. Dinner prep is another invisible job. Someone's always chopping, stirring, or chasing a chicken that decided today was not the day. You slice onions until your eyes water, which conveniently disguises the actual crying from earlier. By the time the sun starts tipping low, the day's weight settles on your shoulders. You're not even 14, but your body feels 60. You lean on a rake, watching a hawk circle lazily overhead. The air shifts. The smell of wood smoke thickens. Somewhere behind you, the clank of a tin bucket means your mother's calling it in. But work doesn't stop when the sun sets. That's just when it changes color. Inside, there's more to do. Tools to clean, boots to scrape, books to put away, a candle to trim. You do it without complaint, not because you're a saint, but because there's no other option. In 1850, the line between child and adult is mostly imaginary. And yet, sometimes, in the quiet between chores, you find something close to peace. Like now. You step outside one last time to carry in firewood. The dusk air smells like damp pine and cooled iron. A loon cries from the lake beyond the trees. Your hands are numb, your shoulders sore, but something about the fading light makes the world feel still, as if time itself is catching its breath. You stop and breathe with it, because even in a world of endless tasks, there are pauses, moments that stretch like warm molasses and remind you that being alive, really alive, is more than just doing. It's noticing. You carry in the firewood, you close the door behind you, and you glance at the biscuit tin, just to check. It's still full. Maybe tomorrow you'll sneak too.
The moment supper ends, after everyone's wiped their mouths with sleeves and the fire's been stoked again, the night reveals its favorite trick. It changes everything. By day, your town is all clang and clatter, sawdust and gossip, sweat and road dust. But by night, the wooden buildings take on a strange softness. Shadows stretch. Candlelight flickers through warped window panes. The muddy roads grow still. The only sound is the creaking of porch boards and the occasional coyote crying out into the endless dark like it's got regrets. You step out onto the stoop for just a minute. The stars overhead are scattered like salt on a black tablecloth, sharp and glittering. There's no gaslight here, no glowing neon signs. The night is thick and absolute, pierced only by lanterns swinging in the hands of neighbors walking home from one place or another. And you know what you're seeing? A town that already burned once, probably more than once. You might be in Arcata, California, where the lumber mills keep growing and so do the fire risks. Or maybe you're further inland, where every house is made of wood and every kitchen stove is an open flame wrapped in optimism. Towns in 1850 are a little like matchsticks with delusions of grandeur. If you don't see smoke once a month, you start to wonder if something's wrong. That's why you're always watching, always ready. Everyone knows someone whose house just wasn't there anymore one morning. Tonight, though, it's quiet. Still. You hear laughter from the neighbor's parlor, muffled by thick curtains, probably thrown over the windows to keep the heat in. You know what's happening in there. A parlor game. Maybe charades, maybe forfeits, where someone reads challenges out loud and others perform ridiculous tasks in exchange for small objects lost in a hat. And don't let the word parlor fool you. It's just the room with the least mud in it. Someone's grandma's probably nodding off in the corner, and a toddler is definitely licking a candle. You get invited inside. The parlor is warm, cluttered, and dim. A dozen faces in the glow of 2 candles. One kid holds a fiddle, tuning it with exaggerated seriousness.
Another plays something plunky on a square piano that hasn't been in tune since the Mexican-American War. The melody is noble, if a bit off-key. And the air? It's got that sweet blend of cinnamon, coal dust, and well-oiled smoke. Not great for lungs, but excellent for nostalgia. You sink into a chair near the back and watch. Someone's blindfolded and stumbling around in a game of blind man's bluff. They knock into a spinning wheel, bump their head on the mantle, and accidentally grab a potato instead of a hand. The room erupts with laughter that sounds like it hasn't had reason to exist all day, but it's here now. A girl pulls out a deck of cards, not for gambling tonight, just a friendly round of oh, mad or snap. There's no money on the table, but the stakes feel real. Win, and you get to pick dessert first tomorrow. Lose, and you do the dishes with soap that eats your fingerprints. Someone tries to start a game of riddles. The first one is about a one-eyed man with a wooden leg who can see through walls. No one gets it. A 10-minute debate follows. Someone accuses the riddle of being unreasonable. The room almost erupts into political chaos. But before things escalate, someone suggests singing. Now, singing, this is sacred. Hymns, folk songs, ballads about soldiers and sailors, mothers and angels. You've sung them all 100 times, and they never get old. One song begins gently. "Oh, Shenandoah, I long to see you." Everyone joins in, voices like wool blankets, scratchy in spots, but warm and sincere. The candlelight catches the gleam of someone's wedding ring. An old man taps his knee to the beat. A little boy hums even when he doesn't know the words. You're all tied together by that invisible thread music weaves between people. Historians still argue whether these gatherings were mere recreation or the emotional backbone of frontier towns. But tonight, you know what it is. It's not just a game or a song, it's medicine. Eventually, the room quiets. Someone yawns dramatically and stands. That's the cue. Chairs scrape, coats go on, candles get snuffed, goodbyes are whispered and drawn out with the occasional, "Y'all come by again real soon." You step back outside. The cold bites your cheeks, but the warmth lingers in your chest. Your boots crunch softly in the dirt as you walk home under that silver-tipped moon. Your house glows faintly from within. Inside, the stove hums and pops, casting soft light over the floor. Your sister is braiding her hair by lantern glow. Your father is sharpening his penknife for no reason other than that's what he does every night. Your mother folds napkins even though tomorrow's meals will be eaten with hands. You take your seat by the fire. You've got an old book on your knee. Maybe it's the Rollo series or a dog-eared copy of Pilgrim's Progress. You read slowly, eyes half-lidded. The pages are soft from turning and the words wrap around your mind like a quilt. In this world, the day doesn't end with headlines. It ends with warmth, flickering light, and the satisfaction of having survived another round with the unpredictable rhythm of frontier life. Outside, the wind nudges at the door but doesn't push through. The town rests. It's not quiet because it's asleep. It's quiet because it's earned it. And as you close your eyes by the dimming fire, you think, this place burns. It rebuilds. It laughs. It sings. It lives.
It's the 10th of the month, and that means one thing. The mail steamer has arrived. The whole town knows it. You knew it the moment you heard that low whistle echo across the bay like a distant sigh. Even the goats stopped chewing. You toss your chores aside, literally, in one case, where a shovel lands in the watering trough, and bolt toward the post office. You're not alone. A dozen others are already jogging or striding or hobbling down the muddy road, boots slapping, shawls flapping, and eyes wide with hopeful impatience. News only comes once a month, sometimes less, and when it arrives, it's more than just letters. It's a reminder that the world is still out there. The cities you left behind, the cousins you forgot to answer, The newspapers you read 4 weeks late but still argue over like it's breaking news. The post office, which is also the general store and possibly someone's cousin's bedroom, is packed. A long, splintered counter separates you from the great mystery box behind it, the mail sack. Everyone watches as the postmaster, old Mr. Durgin with his one working eye and dramatic cough, unties the cord with a flair he probably practiced. A hush falls. The sack flops open. He pulls out envelopes like he's revealing a magician's hand, dusty, creased, some stained with what you pray is ink. Each name he calls is a ripple through the crowd. Mrs. Althea Crouch. A faint gasp. She steps forward. Miss Lenore Price. A gloved hand reaches out. A.J. Hollingsworth. No one answers. Dead? Missing? Forgot to pay postage? Then finally, your name. You step forward. Mr. Durgin doesn't even look up, just slides the envelope across like a poker chip. It's from your cousin in Boston. You recognize the handwriting, upright and perfect, probably done with a fountain pen and not a sharpened stick. You press the envelope to your chest for a second. It smells faintly of lilacs, or maybe your imagination. You find a crate near the stove, sit down and open the letter with slow reference. The words unfold like a breeze from another world. There's news of city traffic, a new theater opening, and scandal. Someone wore French shoes to a Presbyterian luncheon. You read every sentence twice. There's also a folded advertisement tucked inside. A corset flyer. You try not to smirk. Corsets in 1850 are less fashion accessory, more medieval siege weapon. They claim to accentuate the feminine form, but mostly function as slow-moving body traps. This particular flyer features a woman fainting gracefully into a chaise lounge, possibly from the cinching. You flip it over. Available in whalebone, brass hooked, and the new steam-stitched elastic. You wonder which option offers the best chance of survival. It's not the only ad. There's also one for tooth powder, 2 for cures involving castor oil and cayenne pepper, and one very urgent broadside about a runaway husband who left town with his barber's wife and 3 jars of pickled okra. The mail's not just about news. It's a kaleidoscope of human absurdity. You sort through what's been tacked on the public board while you wait. A dog missing, last seen chasing a wheelbarrow. A new shipment of hats arriving Tuesday. And one unsigned notice simply reading, "Stay out of my field." You know who you are. And of course, at the very center is the newspaper. The latest edition is 4 pages thick, printed in small type with dramatic headlines like "Peculiar Frost in Kansas" and "Two-Headed Calf Survives Winter." You read about a shipwreck on the Atlantic coast, a political squabble in Washington, and a farmer in Ohio who swears his cow can count. Historians still argue whether these local papers exaggerated for drama or simply understood that entertainment and news were the same thing. Either way, you hang on every word. But the best part? The letters from strangers. Pinned to the board are those odd leftovers. Letters addressed to any kind soul in Arcata, or Mrs. Tilly, if she still lives here. There's one from a soldier stationed in Texas, describing sandstorms and longing. Another from a school teacher in New York, writing to a sister who may have moved west or vanished entirely. You don't know who will claim them. Maybe no one. Maybe everyone. You read them anyway. After the crowd thins and Mr. Durgin lights his pipe, a sign that he's officially done with you all, you slip your letter into your coat pocket and walk slowly home. The road feels different now, like it's been temporarily connected to the world beyond the hills. Back at the house, your mother's already reading her own letter. Her lips move silently and her fingers tremble slightly when she reaches the part about Aunt Ellen's failing eyes. Your father squinting at the newspaper, mouthing the editorials like he's arguing in his head. Your little brother is chewing on the corner of an envelope. He thinks it tastes like peppermints and secrets. You unfold your letter again before bed. You read it in the lantern glow, line by line. You trace the curves of your cousin's name at the bottom. For a moment, you are in Boston. You hear the carriage wheels, smell the city soot, feel the press of a crowd that doesn't know your name. And then you're back, in your small wooden room, with your boots by the door and the fire sighing low. The mail steamer only comes once a month, but tonight, it brought the whole world with it. You wake the next day with the sound of footsteps overhead, the kind that tell you someone's looking for their other sock while trying not to fall through the attic floorboards. That's the sign. It's Saturday night. Technically, it's still morning, but the preparations begin early, because in 1850, Saturday night is a big deal. Not for going out, not for movies, which don't exist, not for dining in a candlelit restaurant, unless your idea of dining is chewing jerky behind the blacksmith shop. No, Saturday night is for gathering in the parlor, lighting every available candle, and pretending you don't mind the smell of tallow and faintly burnt cabbage. After supper, something simple like boiled beans and cornmeal mush. You help clear the table. Your sister scrubs the plates with lye soap, humming softly. Your brother pretends not to be hiding biscuits in his coat. Outside, the wind picks up, brushing past the shutters like a whisper. Inside, the mood shifts, the chores slow. Someone pulls the rocking chair close to the fire, and the game box appears. It's not a box in the modern sense, more like a dented tin full of playing cards, wooden dice, and strange scraps of folded paper with ancient riddles scribbled in shaky cursive. The whole thing smells like dust, old peppermint, and triumph. Tonight, there's a full house. Neighbors shuffle in through the back door, stamping snow off their boots and shedding coats that smell like smoke and cedar. Someone brings a pie. Someone else brings fiddle strings and a pocket harmonica. And someone, a real wild card, brings a game you've never heard of before. You already suspect it involves blindfolds. The room glows with candlelight, soft, golden, flickering shadows onto the rough planked floor. You can see every scratch on the chairs, every wrinkle in someone's brow as they concentrate on a game of authors or I Spy. There's something grounding about it. No noise, but the occasional crackle from the fireplace and the distant caw of a bird outside that refuses to go to bed. Someone suggests charades. You groan, but only a little. Charades in 1850 is a full-body sport. No props, no flashcards, just exaggerated gestures and wild guesses. Last week, your father mimed the Erie Canal by walking in slow circles while holding an imaginary rope and muttering about mules. It took 20 minutes and ended in a debate about whether he was actually just being a man in distress. Now it's more turn. The clue is lightning. You flap your arms. You jump. You make a face like you've been electrocuted. One of the neighbors guesses, a goose in a thunderstorm. Another shouts, your cousin Millie. You fall over dramatically. They clap anyway. When the laughter fades, the harmonica comes out. It wheezes a tune you half remember from church. Something about rivers or angels or heartbreak. You hum along quietly, your fingers curled around a cup of cider that's more steam than flavor. Your mother sings next. Her voice is steady, even if the pitch wanders a little. You've heard this song before, about a girl waiting for her sailor to return. The whole room goes still, like the fire itself is holding its breath. Then, someone opens the floor for stories. You know what's coming. Mr. Tolland's ghost tale. Again, he tells it every Saturday night after pie. You've heard it 20 times, and it changes every time. This week, the ghost wears a bonnet and speaks Latin. Everyone leans in anyway. The candles flicker dramatically on cue. He finishes, wide-eyed, and bites into a slice of pie like nothing just happened. The silence is broken by someone dropping a fork. Everyone jumps. Your little brother hides behind your chair. Someone coughs to cover a nervous laugh. It's not all scares and shadows, though. The conversation wanders gently, like a lazy stream. People swap recipes, gardening tips, and local legends. One woman insists her goat can predict storms. A man with a lopsided beard describes a bear he saw as big as a wagon and twice as mean. Someone else asks if the telegraph wires will ever stretch this far west. Your father mutters something about sorcery under his breath. And then come the riddles. Old ones, mostly. I go in hard, come out soft, and am never the same again. What am I? The answer is chewing gum, but half the room pretends to be scandalized. You add your own. What has a tongue but cannot talk and gets sharper the more it's used? They guess a woman. You laugh. It's a knife. Your mother raises an eyebrow. You decide that's enough riddles for the night. As things wind down, someone pulls out a deck of well-worn cards. Whist, mostly. Maybe some cribbage. A few people just sit and talk in hushed tones by the fire. You sneak a leftover piece of pie. No one stops you. Historians still argue whether Saturday night parlor gatherings were driven by boredom or deep-rooted human need. But tonight, you don't need to argue. You feel it in your bones. This isn't just a way to pass the time. It's how people stitch themselves into one another's lives, with songs and stories and pie and half-burned candles. Eventually, folks gather their coats, step back into the cold, and vanish into the dark, one by one. You help blow out the candles, one by one, until the parlor is dark again, silent, full of the memory of laughter and warmth. Back in your room, you slip under the covers. Your face still tingles from the heat of the hearth. Your ears still echo with voices and harmonica tunes and that ridiculous ghost who probably wore tap shoes. Tomorrow is Sunday, serious, buttoned up, and full of sermons. But tonight was all yours. And in the dark, you smile.
Sunday doesn't sneak up on you. It arrives like a slow, deliberate march, clear, calm, and a little bit demanding. You feel it before you open your eyes. There's no sound of axes in the woods, no hammers thudding against fence posts, no breakfast chaos, just stillness. Even the chickens seem quieter, like they're observing some invisible line in the dirt between ordinary and holy. You open your eyes to a house already steeped in quiet activity. The kettle whistles low, a spoon stirs slowly. Someone's brushing their boots on the porch. It's Sunday, and you're expected to look presentable, at least more so than usual. You swing your legs over the edge of the straw mattress, rub your face, and prepare for the weekly costume change. The clothes are already laid out with reverence and a hint of mothballs, starched collar, buttons that don't match, a wool vest that smells faintly of pipe smoke and lemon soap. You step into them like a knight donning armor, but instead of a sword, your weapon today is restraint. No joking, no running, no loud opinions. It's a day for sitting up straight and pretending your socks match. Your mother inspects everyone like a general preparing troops. She tucks in a collar here, yanks a ribbon into place there, and wipes some invisible smudge from your cheek with a bit of spit. Your little brother is already 2 buttons off course. Your father's tie looks more like a noose than a fashion statement. Everyone's hair is combed flat and shiny enough to reflect shame. Breakfast is subdued. No beans, no sausage, just porridge with dried apple bits and a small dab of honey, enough to remind you you're blessed, but not enough to tempt gluttony. The grace is longer than usual, and even the dog looks guilty by the end. Then comes the walk to church. There's no buggy today. That's for emergencies and severe blizzard. Besides, walking builds character. You head down the main road, your boots crunching against gravel and frost. Other families join the pilgrimage from side paths and homesteads, forming an accidental parade of pressed shirts, solemn faces, and bonnets held tightly against the breeze. The church sits at the edge of town like a moral compass carved from whitewashed planks. The bell tolls once, then twice, sending a vibration through your chest like it's summoning something older than everyone here combined. Inside, the pews are cold. The air smells of beeswax, wooden polish, and the ghost of 1,000 whispered prayers. You take your usual seat, 3rd pew from the front, left-hand side. There's no hymnals yet. The town couldn't afford them. Songs are learned by repetition, passed down like sourdough starters and family grudges. The preacher steps up to the pulpit. His beard is even more formidable than usual. His voice carries easily, even without a microphone, resonant, booming, and just raspy enough to sound like it knows things. He begins with a greeting, then a reading, then a prayer that lasts just long enough for your knees to consider mutiny. Today's sermon? Temptation. Again, always a crowd favorite. You try to pay attention, you really do, but it's hard when the sun hits the stained glass window just right and throws colored shapes onto the floor that dance like living gems. You trace them with your boot toe. Your little brother yawns so wide it echoes. You catch only fragments. Fire and brimstone, wickedness of sloth, divine judgment. There's mention of Jonah, again, always getting swallowed. You wonder if anyone ever preached about the fish's side of the story. Then comes the moment of music, a hymn, Rock of Ages or Come Thou Fount, depending on who remembered the words best. The congregation joins in with voices that are less about pitch and more about participation. You sing too, not because you sound good, but because it feels right. The music fills the air like flower dust, settling into the cracks of the wooden beams and the hollows of your rib cage. When it ends, a moment of silence spreads like warm butter across a still table. The preacher raises both hands, blesses the congregation, and dismisses everyone with a benediction that you can almost feel resting on your shoulders. Outside, the mood shifts. People smile again, whispers rise, little clusters form near the wood pile and under the oaks. Babies are passed around like precious baskets. News is exchanged, who's sick, who's expecting, who got caught stealing jam from the general store. And then comes Sunday dinner. Whether you're invited to a neighbor's house or eating at home, it's the same kind of sacred feast, the best the house can offer. Roast chicken or pork, root vegetables with a touch of molasses, fresh bread if the flour held out, pie if the hens didn't revolt earlier in the week. You eat slowly, letting the Sabbath unwind around you like a spool of soft thread. Your father tells a story about a preacher who lost his notes and ended up reading from a recipe for rhubarb preserves.
Everyone laughs, even your grandmother, who usually only smiles when lightning strikes the barn of someone she dislikes. After the plates are cleared, some go for a walk, others nap in chairs tilted just far enough to snore. Your mother knits, her needles clicking in rhythm with the clock. You curl up by the fire with a blanket and a book, probably Pilgrim's Progress again, or maybe one of those improving tales about children who died after not obeying. Outside, the day stretches long and golden. You lie there, half asleep, thinking about heaven, what it might smell like, whether they have pie, whether the pews are tatted. Historians still argue whether Sunday in 1850 was more about control or community. Was it forced stillness or voluntary rhythm? Was it spiritual food or social conformity? No one knows. Maybe both. But as you listen to the quiet breathing of your family, the fire's last sigh, and the distant creak of the barn roof settling for the night, none of that matters. What matters is this: one day in a 7 where the world slowed down just enough for you to feel human again. And as dusk falls like a quilt over the land, you feel it wrapping around you too, soft, steady, sure. By Monday morning, the peaceful hush of Sunday has evaporated like mist from the fields. The rooster crows before the light even hits the horizon, and this time you're not grateful for the serenity. You groan, stretch, and sit up to the same sounds as last week: kettles rattling, boots on the porch, and someone outside already chopping wood like the forest insulted his family. The work week in 1850 doesn't begin with motivational quotes or a cup of coffee, unless you count roasted chicory root boiled in a tin pot. There's no snooze button, no catching up on emails. You rise because the house rises. You move because it's what you've been trained to do since you were tall enough to reach the door latch. Today's task: something new. Maybe it's clearing a patch of wild blackberry brambles that have overtaken the edge of the garden. Maybe it's a trip to town with your father, where you'll trade a sack of dried beans and 24 eggs for flour, nails, and a story about a traveling showman who claims to have swallowed a live eel. If it's laundry day, God help you. Laundry in 1850 isn't a push-button affair. It's a strategic campaign against filth, involving water hauled from the well, firewood burned to heat the cauldron, lye soap that stings your nose, and muscles you didn't know you had. Clothes are boiled, beaten, rinsed in frigid water, and hung out to dry on sagging lines, where they will undoubtedly be inspected by judgmental blue jays and the occasional neighbor passing by with an unsolicited opinion on your starching technique. You might spend the afternoon in the barn, patching a harness or cleaning tools. It's dusty, it's hot, and there's a faint scent of mouse droppings in every corner. But there is also peace in it. The clink of metal, the creak of old leather, the familiarity of work that doesn't demand more than your hands and patience. Then again, maybe you've been sent to help a neighbor, a widow whose fence is leaning, or a sick farmer whose corn needs picking. This isn't optional. In 1850, communities don't survive without mutual sacrifice. Helping isn't charity, it's investment. You plant their seeds today because someday you'll need someone to help raise your barn. You sling your tools over your shoulder and head down the road, passing through a patch of wildflowers that seem to bloom defiantly in every direction. The wind carries the scent of cut hay and the faint notes of someone singing off-key 2 farms over. Your boots are already soaked with dew, and you haven't even made it past the first hill. When you arrive, you're greeted like family. Not with hugs or noise, but with a nod, a gesture toward the tool shed, and a silent understanding that this work matters. Together, you spend the morning driving posts, stretching wire, or hauling sacks of feed. You work without much talk, just the rhythm of labor, the shared effort, and the occasional joke muttered under your breath when someone dropped a bucket on their foot. Lunch is simple: cold biscuits, pickled onions, and a strip of salt pork so tough it might qualify as building material. You sit in the shade, backs against a fence, chewing slowly and watching a hawk circle overhead. No one says much. You're all conserving energy. Or maybe you're just too tired to pretend you want conversation. Historians still debate whether 19th century rural labor was more exploitative or empowering, whether it crushed the spirit or shaped it into something resilient. The answer probably depends on the day. On this one, as your palms blister and your shirt clings to your back, you wonder if maybe it's a little of both. By late afternoon, the job's done. Not perfect, but solid. The fence stands straighter, the weeds are pulled, the woodpile is replenished. You shake hands, exchange promises to return the favor, and begin the walk home. Along the way, you spot a frog trying to cross the road, an event more riveting than anything in town last week. You crouch, scoop him up, and let him leap from your hand into a puddle. He disappears with a plop and a ripple, leaving behind nothing but a smear of mud on your fingers and the faint echo of delight. Back at home, the chores haven't waited. Your sister hands you a basket of green beans to snap. Your brother's broken the spinning wheel again. A pot boils over in the kitchen. Your mother swats your hand when you try to sneak a slice of cornbread. Everything smells like rosemary, smoke, and people trying very hard not to yell. Evening brings supper: boiled turnips, fried apples, and bread soaked in drippings. Your father talks about a new plow design. Your sister describes a poem she heard at school. Your brother gets his ear flicked for lying about how the cat accidentally ended up in the flower bin. After dinner, the lamp light flickers as you sit by the window, mending a rip in your shirt. The house is quieter now. The world outside has softened. Crickets chirp in the tall grass. The moon rises like a silver coin, and the sky turns from gold to navy to ink. You think about tomorrow, the same routines, the same work, but not the same you. Every day adds something: a new callus, a new skill, a new memory of someone's laughter or the feel of warm bread in your hands. These aren't just days, they're building blocks. Each one lays another stone in the foundation of who you're becoming. And as you close your eyes, the hum of the world carrying you gently into sleep, you know this: in the quiet grind of 1850, even the smallest efforts echo.
The first bite of frost always sends a message, soft, silvery, but clear. Winter's waiting at the edge of the fields, and if you don't hurry, it'll catch you unready. So on this mid-October morning, you yank on your boots and head outside with a wool scarf tucked up to your ears. It's harvest season in 1850, and that means one thing: you're racing daylight every day until the last pumpkin's hauled in and the root cellars packed tight. The first chore is apples. You and your siblings fan out across the orchard, baskets banging against your hips,
fingers already stiff. The trees are heavy with fruit. Green-speckled Baldwins, blush red northern spies, and the smaller, sour crabs used for cider. You climb carefully, mindful of slick bark and slippery twigs, reaching into the canopy where sunlight dapples the leaves like spilled gold. Each apple is twisted gently, not pulled, never pulled, or it won't keep through February. Below, your younger brother hums off-key and swats at bees. Your sister is already halfway through a second basket. You chuck an overripe apple at her and miss by a mile. She grins. For a moment, the labor feels like play. Next come the squash, plump, dusty orange, and hidden among sprawling vines. You use a dull blade to sever the stems, careful not to nick the skin. Your mother insists a single cut or bruise means rot by Christmas. You don't question her. She's the high priestess of preservation, the one who knows which corner of the cellar stays coolest, which potato sprouted too early, and which jar of molasses can stretch one more week if thinned with hot water. Back by the barn, your father and uncle are loading hay bales onto a creaking wagon. The air smells of crushed clover, cracked wood, and horses who have no idea they'll be pulling sleighs soon. Your boots crunch across the frost-rimmed grass as you haul another basket into the wagon's belly. It's slow work, but there's a shared urgency among everyone. If the ground freezes before the beets are up, the pigs won't have a winter feed. And if the pigs don't fatten properly, well, nobody wants to talk about that. At midday, the sun finally breaks through the gray quilt of clouds, and someone calls a halt. Lunch is served on a blanket laid right in the furrows. Cold buttermilk biscuits, sliced salt pork, pickled cucumbers, and sharp cheddar brought out in a metal tin wrapped in cloth. You chew slowly, grateful. Even lukewarm food after hard work tastes better than most feasts. But it's not over. Now it's time for applesauce. The smaller, bruised, or oddly shaped apples go to the big copper kettle over a fire pit behind the house. You peel, core, and toss them in with cinnamon sticks and sugar. A younger cousin stirs with a wooden paddle as steam curls into the cold air. The scent is indescribable, like warmth itself took physical form. You sneak a spoonful and burn your tongue, then do it again anyway. Nearby, your grandmother strings apple slices onto linen thread to dry above the hearth. She's quiet, methodical, her fingers moving faster than your eyes can track. She tells you how, when she was a girl, they had to hang the slices from the rafters to keep mice out. That winter, they still lost half the crop. You nod, storing the story like another dry apple on the string. Then it's the root vegetables. Rows of carrots, turnips, parsnips, and potatoes are pulled and sorted. Anything misshapen or bruised goes into the eat soon basket. The perfect ones are layered in the cellar between dry straw and hope. You carry load after load down the stone steps into the earth-smelling dark where shelves groan beneath the season's gifts. Jars of beans, sacks of dried corn, onions braided like ropes, and crocks of sauerkraut humming faintly in their brine. Historians still argue whether harvest time in the 1850s was more about survival than celebration, whether the sense of community it created was real or simply a byproduct of necessity. But as you pass your brother a heavy sack of beets and watch him nearly tick over from its weight, you understand. It's both. This is ritual. This is theater. This is a bond forged not by shared beliefs, but by shared sweat. By evening, your legs ache and your fingers sting. You've got dirt under your nails and burrs in your socks. But you're smiling. Not because it's over, it never really is, but because you're full in a way that has nothing to do with food. Dinner is a reward. Roasted squash, apple pie with a lard crust, ham glazed with molasses. The kitchen is loud and warm, lit by firelight and conversation. Someone retells the story about Uncle Hiram accidentally fermenting the cider too long and putting half the church to sleep. Your father laughs so hard he snorts. You haven't seen him laugh like that since spring. After supper, the whole family gathers by the hearth. Some knit, some read. Your cousin dozes with a cat on his chest. You sit with your head resting against the wall, watching the flames flicker and dance. Outside, the frost comes again, thicker this time, bolder. But it can't touch you here. You've gathered, you've prepared, and now as the fire pops and sighs and the scent of dried apples hangs sweet in the air, you let your eyes close. Let the frost come.
Morning has never been your favorite time, not because of the cold floorboards or the long list of chores, but because it always sneaks in before you're ready. In 1850, there's no alarm clock, no gentle sunrise simulation, just the rooster, the rattle of a kettle, and someone downstairs coughing into the stovepipe. Still, today brings something different, something that draws you out of your warm cocoon faster than usual. It's market day. That means you're going to town, and even though you'll be hauling sacks of potatoes and watching a neighbor haggle over eggs like it's a chess match, the idea of leaving the homestead feels almost exotic. You brush the hay from your sleeves, pack a wool shawl, and tuck a few coins into your boot, just in case. The wagon's ready before dawn. The mules blink at the frost like they resent your entire bloodline. Your father is already grumbling about axle grease, and your mother hands you a bundle wrapped in cloth, baked apples and leftover Johnny cakes, still warm from the hearth. The ride into town is slow but rich with details. The road bumps beneath you, muddy in places, frozen in others. Trees, half naked, wave their last golden leaves as you passed. Smoke rises from distant chimneys, and sometimes you spot a deer darting between bare trunks. It's quiet in a way that modern highways can't imitate. The wheels creak, the harness jingles, birds scatter. Town itself appears like a surprise, just a scattering of buildings at the crossroads. A general store, a post office, a smithy, and maybe a boarding house that smells perpetually of boiled cabbage. But to your 1850 self, it's the bustling center of the universe. The market is held on a packed dirt square. Tents flap in the wind, goods spill out onto wagons and rickety tables. There are crates of apples and jars of honey, bolts of cloth imported from back east, glass buttons, smoked hams, hand-stitched bonnets, copper kettles, even a fiddler hoping to earn a few cents with a tune. You help unload your family's goods. Onions, squash, maybe a small keg of cider your uncle insists will cure everything but heartbreak. Your father trades them for flour, kerosene, nails, and a new plow blade. You're allowed to handle some of the smaller trades, which makes you feel like a full-grown merchant, even though you forget the difference between bartering and selling at least once, and almost give away a whole chicken for a peppermint stick. As the sun climbs, the square gets livelier. Neighbors you haven't seen in weeks stop to chat. Someone has a new baby. Someone else is missing a tooth after a logging accident. Rumors spread like fire in dry grass about new immigrants arriving, about a political speech in the next county, or about a peddler passing through who claims to sell snake oil that can raise the dead, or at least smooth your wrinkles. Historians still debate how much these town days contributed to community cohesion, or simply reinforced rural hierarchies. Was it bonding, or low-key competition? The answer's probably yes. You feel both proud and self-conscious when someone compliments your family's smoked bacon. You compare your boots to other kids' boots. You eavesdrop on old men grumbling about railroads and taxes. Then there's the general store. It's your favorite building. Dim, warm, and absolutely packed. Every shelf groans with goods. Glass jars filled with licorice whips, musty books, candles wrapped in paper, blue-dyed fabric, metal toys with chipped paint. You trail your fingers along the shelves, dizzy with possibilities you know you probably can't afford. Still, you dream. A harmonica, a red ribbon, or just maybe that tiny tin of peppermint lozenges. Lunch is taken on the edge of the square. You sit on an upturned crate, eating cold biscuits and watching a man try to shoe a mule that clearly has no respect for law or logic. Two boys chase each other through a cabbage cart. Someone drops a basket of eggs. Laughter follows, like wind in the trees. The afternoon slows. Some people start heading home. You help reload the wagon. Your mother reminds you to say thank you to the storekeeper, who slips you a bruised apple with a wink. It tastes sweeter than anything you've had all season. On the way home, you ride sleepy.
The wind stings your face, but the rest of you is warm under a blanket shared with your sister. The wagon rocks gently, and you watch the sky blush with sunset. You pass other wagons, some neighbors, some strangers. You wave. They wave back. That's just how it is. At home, you help unpack. The new things, nails, soap, fabric, are precious in their own quiet way. You get to keep the peppermint tin, after all. You hide it under your pillow like treasure. That night, your family talks about town, about prices, about people. Your father thinks the mayor is hiding something. Your mother wants to try a new bread recipe. You just remember the sound of the fiddle, the smell of beeswax, and the cold bench you sat on while trading 5 eggs for a secondhand story. Later in bed, you replay it all, not just the market, but what it meant. Proof that you're part of something bigger than a homestead. A web of people, goods, gossip, music, and mischief. A world that comes alive once a week, just long enough to remind you you're not alone.
The wind bites sharper now. Each morning you wake, the window glass is traced with lacework frost, delicate and cold. You pull the covers over your head, but there's no escaping it. Laundry day has arrived, and in 1850, laundry day isn't just a task. It's an all-day battle, and spoiler alert, you're on the front lines. You slip out of bed, your toes meeting the icy floorboards with a hiss. Downstairs, the fire's already been started. Your mother is boiling the first kettle of water over the hearth, the blackened pot hanging on a swing arm. The smell of wood smoke mixes with the faint scent of lye soap and wet wool, a perfume you've come to recognize as Monday. Outside, your breath fogs as you help haul the heavy iron kettle onto the backyard fire pit. The air is so cold it makes your eyes water, but there's no waiting for warmer weather. Wash must be done, and there's a pile of trousers, underthings, and aprons grimy from harvest season that aren't going to scrub themselves. You start with water. Bucket after bucket drawn from the well, hauled up by rope, poured carefully into the big basin. It takes more strength than you expect, and by the 5th trip, your arms are trembling and the tip of your nose is numb. But there's something grounding in the routine, something honest in the effort. Work like this doesn't lie. The soap is made by hand, rendered from animal fat and mixed with wood ash to make lye. It's not gentle. It can strip grease from pans, stains from shirts, and occasionally the skin from your fingers. You chip a chunk from the block and drop it into the hot water. A sour, sharp scent rises as the soap dissolves. Your grandmother tests it by rubbing it between her knuckles. If it stings, it's strong enough. If it peels skin, it's perfect. Next comes the sorting. Whites in one tub, darks in another. Heavy woolen set aside for a colder rinse. There are no spin cycles here, just your fingers, your elbows, and a corrugated metal washboard that doubles as a percussion instrument on livelier days. Your job? Wringing and hanging. One by one, you take the dripping clothes and twist them until water runs down your arms. You string each piece on the line outside, your numb fingers fumbling with frozen pins. The wind catches a petticoat and slaps it against your cheek like it's mad at you. Shirts flutter like surrender flags. Socks freeze in comical starched shapes. And yet, there's something satisfying about it all. The rhythm, the smell of soap, the sight of your hard work flapping in the sunlight. Laundry day in 1850 is backbreaking, but it's also strangely sacred. Clean clothes mean health, dignity, readiness for company, for church, for life. As the last sheet goes on the line, you sneak back inside. Your hands tingle painfully as they thaw by the stove. Your sister is scrubbing floors with vinegar and sand. Your brother is tasked with shaking out rugs, and every thump sounds like a small explosion of dust and grit. It's not just laundry, it's deep clean day. And there's a reason. Tomorrow, visitors are coming.
Now, this isn't a pop-in. In 1850, people don't just show up. Visits are planned, written about in letters, whispered about at church. The aunt and uncle from Dover means half a week of prep. The house must shine, the children must not be feral, the parlor, usually a museum of dust and quiet, must be awakened and warmed. Your mother pulls out the good tablecloth, the one with tiny embroidery and a wine stain from a long ago Christmas. She lays it on the table and presses it with a flat iron heated in the fire. You polish the pewter plates until you can almost see your reflection. And it's not a bad one, considering you just fought a shirt for 20 minutes. There's baking to be done. Your mother begins with molasses cookies, her hands moving fast. No measurements, just memory and muscle. The oven, fed by coals, is temperamental. Too hot and the cookies blacken like coal. Too cool and they stay raw in the middle. She tests it by sticking in her arm and counting 1,000, 2 1,000. You hope she still has arm hair by dinner. You get to roll out the pie crusts, apple and mince, and dust them with sugar. The kitchen fills with the kind of scent that makes your stomach growl, and the cat lies suspiciously close to the table leg. There's mending too. Aunt Rebecca is sharp-eyed. Any holes in your stockings or buttons missing from your Sunday vest will be noted and probably brought up 5 years from now in a letter. So your mother sews and mutters and sews some more. By evening, the house has transformed. The floor is swept, rugs laid flat, chairs arranged in awkward but intentional circles. The chamber pots are emptied, candles trimmed, fresh linens on the guest bed. Though it's really just your bed repurposed for the night, you'll be sleeping on a straw tick in the corner with your little brother kicking your ribs. And yet, you're excited. In 1850, company is rare and precious. There are no movies, no calls, no Instagram story about pie. A visitor brings stories, laughter, news from the next county, maybe even a song or a joke you haven't heard 100 times. They might bring gifts, a jar of jam, a bolt of cloth, a little tin box with licorice lozenges. Historians still debate whether rural hospitality was genuine warmth or strategic networking. Was your home open because you loved people or because your survival depended on reciprocal generosity? The answer, of course, is yes. Visitors were memory makers, alliance builders, sometimes gossip hunters, always cherished. As the fire dies down, you check the last preparations. You fluff pillows, you straighten the broom in the corner, you sneak one cookie and dust the crumbs from your shirt. And when your mother isn't looking, you light a candle just to see its golden glow flicker against the clean window pane. You fall asleep with sore hands and a sore back, but a full heart. Tomorrow, the door will open to laughter and footsteps and the scent of travel. Strangers will become familiar again, and you'll serve them warm pie and a warm place by the fire, proud of the home you helped prepare. And that, in 1850, is what being ready meant. Not perfection, not Pinterest, but clean floors, warm food, and the kind of welcome that says, you belong here, even just for a night.
The frost clings longer to the windows now. Outside, the fields lie quiet, shorn of their harvest, resting under a brittle crust of cold. But inside the house, it's a day of warmth and quiet excitement. Company is expected today, and that means a very different rhythm from your usual morning shuffle. You rise earlier than usual, but not begrudgingly. The stove was stoked high before dawn to take the edge off the chill, and your mother is already in her apron, brushing her hands on her skirt as she checks the rising dough. The scent of yeast and smoke fill the kitchen, a blend of labor and comfort. You're not the only one up. Everyone moves in a kind of unspoken harmony.
There's a bed to finish making, corners tightened, a fire in the guest room to get going, and a quick repolishing of the parlor's few brass candlesticks. Your older sister tucks sprigs of dried lavender into the folded towels. The scent is faint, a breath of summer left behind in a drawer. By now, you've learned the rule of visits in 1850. Preparation is half the hospitality. You sweep again, though you did so yesterday, and the broom head stirs up just enough dust to make your nose twitch. Your brother cleans the boots left by the door, rubbing beeswax into the leather until they shine, even if no one will wear them today. Your father stands out by the fence, looking up the road in the slanting light. There's always that moment of quiet expectation, watching the horizon for movement, scanning the ruts in the road for signs of approaching wheels. No telegraph here, no ringing bell to say, "We're 5 minutes away." The only signal is the dust cloud on the road and the steady creak of wood and wheel. And then it comes. A wagon appears, slow, rolling like it remembers every stone it hits. On board, your aunt, her shawl pulled tight against the wind, your uncle, grinning despite a layer of road dust, and the youngest cousin, barely old enough to walk, bundled up and dozing against a patchwork quilt. You run to help them down. There's no formality, just hugs and loud greetings. Your aunt smells like clothes and starch. Your uncle, as always, gives you a squeeze too hard, then musses your hair even though you tried to slick it down this morning. He says you've grown, but he said the same thing last time. Maybe it's just his way of saying he missed you. Inside, the warmth is immediate. Your mother passes out mugs of cider. There's laughter echoing off the beams already. The cousin wakes and blinks, surprised by all the faces, before letting out a warble of a laugh. Coats are hung by the door, hands warmed over the fire, and the talk begins before anyone even sits. You hear about the early freeze in their part of the county, about a fox bold enough to steal a chicken in broad daylight, and about a runaway horse that turned out to be a neighbor's prank. It's not important news, but it's all alive, full of detail and color. Lunch is light stew and fresh bread, and no one minds. The real meal is coming later. But even here, you notice the effort. The way your mother used a tablecloth, the good plates, the apple butter set out, even though it's usually saved. Hospitality in this time isn't luxury. It's attentiveness. It's the unspoken language of generosity. The afternoon is slow. The men step out to the barn, talking tools and repairs, picking at the condition of the hayloft. The women settle near the hearth with mending and small gossip. You sit with the children, introducing them to your little carved animals, handing over a favorite book, showing them the secret place under the stairs where marbles tend to roll and hide. And then it's time for dinner. This is no ordinary meal. Your mother has been planning it all week. Roast chicken, flaky biscuits, boiled carrots sweet with a touch of molasses, and a pie, apple and nutmeg cooling near the back door. You carry dishes carefully, trying not to spill gravy or burn your fingers. The table groans under the weight of the dishes, and you notice your uncle's eyes go wide with mock reverence. Everyone takes their place. There's a pause before the meal, a prayer, spoken softly by your father, not formal, not showy, just thanks, plain and true, for safety on the road, for food, for family, for the fire and the roof and the chance to laugh together tonight. Heads bow, even the cousin quiets. Eating is noisy, joyful. Elbows bump, jokes fly, seconds are offered, and thirds are cheerfully taken. You've never heard your aunt laugh so loudly, especially when someone tells the story of when your sister dropped the entire butter crot down the well. She protests, but it only makes the story better. After dinner, the parlor comes alive. It's the evening ritual. The fire is stoked high, the lamps are lit, and the chairs pulled close. Someone pulls out a fiddle. Not everyone plays well, but that's hardly the point. One tune leads to another, a jig, a hymn. a half-remembered ballad. You sing even if you don't know all the words, mumbling the parts you've forgotten. Your uncle's voice is loud and flat, but everyone joins in because that's what you do. The baby crawls toward the hearth. Your cousin nods off in someone's lap. The room glows not just from the fire, but from something else, something warmer. A sense of belonging, of continuation, of time slowed to a single beautiful beat. Historians still debate whether these family gatherings were essential glue or pleasant distractions. Was this the scaffolding of society or simply fleeting comfort? But to you, it doesn't matter, because right now, in this small wooden room with creaking floors and glowing walls, you feel it. Connection, the kind that builds stories into legacy. Eventually, the evening wanes. Candles burn low. Your mother gathers the dishes but insists on finishing them tomorrow. The guest bed is turned down. You surrender your room with mock drama and retreat to your straw tick in the corner. Your brother is already asleep, face pressed into his coat. The house quiets. Outside, the wind moans lightly through the trees. You close your eyes, not quite ready for sleep, but full of voices, of faces, of that pie crust flaking just right. You think of the fiddle tune, of the feel of your uncle's calloused hand patting your back, and the way your aunt whispered a joke meant only for you. Sleep comes slowly, softly, not because you're fighting it, but because you don't want this day to end. Not yet, not quite. You listen to the house settle and know deep down that even though the world outside is cold and wide, tonight you are exactly where you are meant to be.
You wake the next morning to a house in mourning. There is no breakfast smell, no chatter, no fire crackling cheerfully in the hearth, only silence and the low, careful sound of someone walking slowly down the stairs. A knock came in the early hours, you learn. Your father answered it in a linen nightshirt, lantern held high. A neighbor, hat in hand, eyes red. "It's old Mr. Harris," he said. "He passed sometime in the night." And just like that, death re-enters your world. Not with ceremony, not with trumpets, but like a draft through a cracked door. It's not a surprise. Mr. Harris was old, the kind of old where even toddlers whisper around him like he's halfway gone already. But he was also still Mr. Harris, the one who carved spoons for the fair, who told wild stories about the 1812 war, who claimed he met Lafayette once, though no one could confirm it. In 1850, death isn't rare. It isn't shocking. It just is. It lingers around the edges of every season. Babies die from colic, men from accidents, women from childbirth, and old folks from time. But it doesn't make it easy. It only makes it expected. Your mother ties a black ribbon around her braid. Your father dresses in his good coat. There's no embalmer, no hearse. The body lies at home in the front room of Mr. Harris's cabin, watched over by his daughter and the town's unofficial undertaker, who is also the blacksmith and occasionally the tax collector. You walk there together, slow and bundled. The air feels wrong, like even the birds decided to stay quiet today. When you arrive, the house is full of whispers and lowered eyes. The body lies on a wooden board covered in muslin, hands folded, a sprig of rosemary tucked between the fingers. It smells of soap, pine needles, and something you can't name. Not decay, just distance, like he's already somewhere else. Children sit outside, throwing stones in silence. Adults gathering corners, talking in murmurs. You overhear debates about the cause. Was it the cold, the infection in his foot, or just time? Historians still argue whether frontier communities leaned on faith or fatalism when facing death. But today, it feels like both. There's scripture read and a story told. Both are given equal weight. At the funeral, which happens the next day because waiting longer would be unwise, the entire town turns up. Funerals in 1850 are social glue. You might miss a birthday, never a burial. It's not about knowing the person well. It's about being seen, about bearing witness, about reminding one another we're all going down the same path eventually. The service is held on a hilltop overlooking the creek. The preacher wears a moth-eaten stole and reads Psalm 90. The days of our years are 80 years and 10. His voice cracks at, and we fly away. But he keeps going. You watch as 6 men lower the simple pine box into a grave dug yesterday by hand. There are no machines, no vaults, just earth, wood, and gravity. A shovelful of soil hits the lid with a sound that will stay in your ears for days. Afterward, there's food. That's the other constant. Grief must be fed. The women lay out cold ham, beans, cornbread, and every kind of pie. You eat because it's expected, but the crust sticks in your throat. Your mother says softly, "He had a good run." And you nod because anything else would be too much. That evening, you sit by the fire with your cousin, the one who saw Mr. Harris just last week. He whispers that he heard the old man humming to himself, staring out the window, as if he knew. Maybe he did. In 1850, people are more attuned to death. They know what it looks like, what it smells like, what it sounds like in a house when someone is gone and everyone else is trying not to cry. You think back to last summer when you helped Mr. Harris pick apples. He told you stories about a flood, about a bear that walked into town and sat in the church, about his wife's laugh. You realize now he told you those stories to leave them behind, so someone would remember. At night, you dream of the hilltop, of the wind blowing through tall grass, of wooden crosses leaning slightly to one side. And in the dream, you're not afraid. There's sadness, sure, but there's also peace. Like the kind that comes from knowing you're part of something bigger, something old, something circular. There's comfort in the ritual, even when it hurts. The gathered coats, the passing of pie, the way neighbors stand closer to each other after a burial, like death rearranges the space between hearts. The next morning, the routine resumes. Bread is kneaded, water fetched, but something lingers. A softness in how my mother places a cup on the table. A long silence from my father before he begins whittling again. Life goes on, yes, but not unchanged. And neither are you. You are a little older now, not by calendar years, but by knowing. Knowing what it means to say goodbye, not with drama, but with depth, with pie and hymns and earth.
The dusk finds you walking alone. It's not for sadness, not today. It's for quiet, for the hush that only this hour brings. The sky stretches above you in layers of rose, gray, and fading blue. The trees at the edge of the lane rustle just enough to remind you this world is alive even as it rests. You pass the old fence where the Harris boys used to race horses. One of the rails is cracked now, sagging under its own age. But you don't fix it. You just nod as you walk past. Not everything needs mending. Further down the lane, lanterns flicker in windows, soft amber halos that make the homes look like they're breathing. You know who lives in each one.
You know which dog will bark half-heartedly, which widow leaves bread on her sill for birds, which child still forgets to bring in the wash before nightfall. Your boots crunch along the gravel, and with each step, the weight of the day gets lighter. The last conversation, the last chore, the last glance toward the horizon, they all slip off your shoulders like a coat you no longer need. You pass the creek. It babbles low and slow tonight, swollen from last week's rain, but still gentle. You bend to pick up a stone, smooth and cold, and send it skipping once, twice, and then it sinks. But it was beautiful while it danced. In the distance, the town's single church bell rings once, not an alarm, just a reminder the day is closing. You keep walking. Ahead, a group of children plays by torchlight, bare feet, wild laughter, and glowing faces as they chase shadows with sticks and the squeals of imagined battle. One girl stops to wave at you, and you wave back, not saying a word. That moment, that smile in the twilight, it sticks. The road narrows. On one side, the fields. On the other, trees huddled close. You smell wood smoke, baking bread, and a hint of crushed grass. The wind changes direction, brushing your face like an old friend, saying, "Go on now, it's almost time." And then you see it, your home. Warm light spills from the kitchen window. Someone inside, your sister, laughs. The porch creaks. You step up, boots scuffing the floorboards, and pause before you open the door. This is it. Not a grand moment, just a good one. The kind that lingers like honey on your tongue or the last note of a lullaby.
So now, as your breathing slows and your eyes begin to drift, hold this quiet world close. The world of 1850 was many things hard, beautiful, strange. It asked much of those who lived it, but it also gave something precious in return. Time measured in lantern flickers, seasons marked by pie crust and harvest, and goodbyes softened by fiddle tunes and soft-spoken prayers. Let your thoughts settle into the rhythm of that slower time, the hush before dawn, the rustle of dresses on wooden floors, the tick of a hand-wound clock. These are the sounds of a world that had no rush, only rhythm. A world where every bite of bread was a small triumph, and every evening walk a sort of prayer. If today was loud and rushed, let it go. You don't need to carry that here. Not now. Let the dust of the 1850s settle around you like a blanket. Faint wood smoke, pie spice, warm wool. You are safe. You are home. Breathe in, slow and deep, like you're in that old timber house again. The fire crackles, the quilt is pulled up, and outside, the last cricket calls. Thank you for spending this night with me, walking gently through the past. Sweet dreams.